Good evening on this very auspicious and holy day of Gimmul Tamuz. May this be the very last time that we have to get together and farbreng on Zoom or on YouTube, but we should merit to be able to farbreng together in 770 with Melech HaMashiach Begufoi, without the need for social distancing, without the need for masks. For when the Geula will come, there'll be no more illness, no more diseases, only cures for everything that ails us, cures for spiritual disillusionment, and we should merit to see the Geula even before the end of this year's Gimmul Tamuz. I was asked to say a few words. I'm neither a scholar nor a philosopher nor an author, but I'll share a few stories that have inspired me, and perhaps it'll inspire some of you. Back in the 1950s, there was a group of some 20 college students who had an audience with the Rebbe in his office. And at one point in their discussion, one of the students posed the following question to the Rebbe. He said, "Rabbi, I know people refer to you as the Lubavitcher Rebbe, but what does that mean? What do you do? What do you do from this little office? What's your job description?" And the Rebbe smiled and he paused for a moment. He appreciated the honesty, he appreciated the chutzpah, and he pointed to the wall and he said, "You see the light switch there on the wall? Well, that switch is connected through wires and electrical currents to a bigger wire that's connected to a power station, and that power station is in downtown Brooklyn. And that power station in downtown Brooklyn, there's these huge generators, and they're connected by still bigger wires and bigger electrical currents, and that goes all the way to Niagara Falls by the Canadian border. And over there, those awesome waterfalls, they churn these massive wheels, and it produces powerful electrical currents. Now, this tremendous energy has to be toned down, it has to be contracted lest it blow the circuits. And that flows all through those wires back to the power station in downtown Brooklyn. And from the power station in downtown Brooklyn, the energy is contracted yet again so that it can flow into the smaller wires and ultimately connected with the light switch you see right there on the wall. So imagine this, says the Rebbe. All this incredible energy is right here. It's right at your fingertips. All you have to do is flip the switch. You flip the switch and suddenly there's light. And suddenly you can see. And there's no need to then stumble in the darkness. You can see clearly what's in front of you, what's going on around you. The same is true of the neshama, of the human soul. The Eibishter God endows each soul with a light switch that is connected to the source of all energy and light, that's connected to the spirit and matter, to the wisdom and to the truth, to God Himself. And this infinite divine energy must be contracted and toned down so that it can be accessed by you and by me in order for it to illuminate our lives. But if we don't know where the switch is, you can't turn on the light, in which case you remain stuck in the darkness. So you ask me, what is my job? My job, said the Rebbe, is to help every single Jew find his or her switch and turn on his or her light. My friends, I think that in thus describing his life's mission, the Rebbe was likewise describing what he commissioned, and he empowered all of his Hasidim around the world to try to accomplish. To help people in their respective communities find that internal light switch so that they could access, so that they can harness the divine energy that is their infinite potential. And when we do so, those whose lights we kindle, they in turn will show others where the switch is, so that they too can turn that switch on and feel the powerful energy that is coming from the Eibishter Himself into their neshamas. I remember seeing an interview on Living Torah. It was an interview with Rabbi Aaron Cousin. And in this particular interview, he told two short stories, and both were connected to the Wednesday hour. The Rebbe believed, and the Rebbe knew that there was a holiness within each and every single Yid, and not just that. He knew that they were reachable. He knew that we have the ability to touch their lives, inspire their lives, and bring about positive change in their lives. He knew the preciousness of each and every single Yid on the face of the earth. I remember seeing an interview on the Living Torah with Rabbi Aaron Cousins, and he tells two short stories, both connected to the Wednesday hour, to the release time program. The first story was about himself. It was nearing his birthday, and he had the good fortune of having a yechidus with the Rebbe a few days before his birthday. And it turns out his birthday that year was going to be on a Wednesday, and he was signed up in the release time program to go visit a public school every Wednesday, to speak to the children in the public school, to say a bracha with them, to say a pasuk with them, to tell a story with them. And so it's nearing his birthday, and he has a yechidus, and in the yechidus he says to the Rebbe that being that my birthday this week is Wednesday, I would imagine the better thing for me to do this Wednesday is to stay immersed in Torah study all day. It's a holy day for me, and so I'd like to spend it in holiness, in the study of Torah the entire day. So I'm going to pass this week on going on the Wednesday hour. I will assign someone else the duty. And the Rebbe responds to him that it's not such a good idea, that there's nothing better that he can do on his birthday than have the schus to speak to these children. And the second story he told was with a friend of his. This friend was also assigned a public school. The public school that he was assigned to was about an hour train ride from Crown Heights, so it took an hour to get there, an hour to spend with the children, an hour to return, and some time to prepare as well. And he didn't feel that he had the social skills to communicate with the children. And so he wrote a letter to the Rebbe saying that he tried signing on to this program, that he went a few times, but he didn't feel he was accomplishing much. So he wanted permission to give it up. They'll assign someone else so that he can stay and utilize that time for the learning of Torah. And the Rebbe responded to him that you should know what goes on in the heavenly worlds, what goes on in Shemayim. When you're in the classroom with those children, and you have the schus to say with these children, Torah, Tziva, Lanu, Moshe, Marasha, Kehilas, Yaakov, that all of the Tanoim and Amoraim, all of the sages in the heavenly world, they stop what they're doing and they look down at that classroom to see who has the great merit, who has the schus to say these psukim with these holy children. And when you say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, they look down and they say, wow, are we so mekana? We are jealous of the individual that has the schus to touch these Yiddish neshamalach, these children's neshamas, in such a holy way. And when you say a bracha with them, once again everything stops and they look down and they're jealous of the role and the mission and the merit that you have to say a bracha with these children. To the point the Rebbe said that Moshe Rabbeinu himself, who you say in the pasuk Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe, Moshe himself looks down and he wishes that he had that opportunity. And you want to give that up? This is the way the Rebbe looked at every single child on the face of the earth, and every single one of us were his children. And I remember when it was Shnas Hashivim, 1972, before Yud Aleph Nisan, the Rebbe let it be known that there's this tradition of getting a birthday gift on one's birthday. So he's not interested in some of the gifts that people perhaps had in mind for him, but if they want to know what he would really like for his birthday, he would like 70 new maistas. 70 new maistas in 1972 was the unthinkable. How can you possibly open 70 new organizations in the span of literally of a few weeks, of a few months? And yet the Rebbe asked for it, so it's going to be done. And people sacrificed greatly, and more than 70 maistas were opened in that year in honor of Shnas Hashivim. Rabbi Kinnan of California opened quite a few of the 70 maistas, and he was at the Farbrengen with some of the Balabatim, And during the sichos, in between sichos, by the singing, he went up with a delegation, and they presented the Rebbe with a key to the new Chabad house. And the Rebbe spoke to those Balabatim, and the Rebbe said, you know, the day will come that Chabad houses will be like chain stores. Chain stores are these stores that you have the same exact store in every city and community throughout the world. So if there's a Macy's in Brooklyn, there's a Macy's in Manhattan, there's a Macy's in every single city and state in the country. He says one day Chabad will be like Macy's, like A&S, like Corvettes, that there will be department stores and chain stores of Chabad everywhere you go. And they smiled. They thought it was cute. It was nice hyperbole. It was nice poetry. But the Rebbe didn't speak in poetic words, and the Rebbe didn't speak in hyperbole. The Rebbe meant it. And think about this today. Today, I checked just today. There are 832 Macy's throughout the entire world. That was before the pandemic. Who knows how many have shut down since? There are over 4,000 Chabad centers today throughout the world. The Rebbe spoke about chain stores, and indeed today every single place we can go in the world, there was one of the Rebbe's meistes. Remember years ago I spoke at a JLI retreat in Virginia, and one of the other guest speakers was Rebbe Miriam Swerdlove. And I attended the lecture that she gave. As always, when Miriam speaks, it's a wonderful, entertaining, inspiring talk. And towards the end of this talk, she challenged the audience. And she asked each one the very same question, and everyone in the room needed to give their answer. And this was the question. If your teenager was leaving home, and you didn't have what would be called an observant home, but yet you were connected to Judaism, and Judaism was important to you, and you can give this teenager that's leaving home and going off to college and going off into the free world and going off to start life, you can give them only one Jewish book. What book would it be? What book do you think that you could give them that would hold on to their heritage, hold on to their connection, hold on to their chain in this link that takes us all the way back to Har Sinai? And each one went around the room. This one said a prayer book, most important book they can give them, a Chumash, most important book. Some chose literature, Herman Wouk's book, Elie Wiesel's book. The more Hasidic in the rooms would say the book of Tanya. Everyone came up with an answer, and finally, after she went around the whole room, she said there's no right or wrong answers. It's a question that's open, but I'll give you my answer. And everyone is waiting to see what exactly will Rebbetzin Swerdlove pick up. And she picks up this paper pamphlet, literally a stapled booklet. And she says, this is it. This is the most important booklet you can give your teenager who's about to go out there in the world. What was she holding up? She was holding up a listing of every Chabad center in the world, of every shliach in the world, their contact information and their addresses. And at first there was a chuckle, it's cute, it seems to be a commercial for Chabad. And then she explained herself, and it was so powerful. What she explained is that what this booklet tells your child, who's about to go out there in the world on their own, that there is no place in the world today that you will find yourself that you do not have a Jewish home waiting for you. That you do not have a Jewish home ready to welcome you, to embrace you, to make you feel part of their family. Any part of the world that your child will travel to, that your child will reside in, that your child will go to school in, wherever they may be, they need to know they have a home, that there's a rabbi and rebbetzin there waiting to make them part of their family. It has never happened in the history of the Jewish people since the beginning of our time that there's not a single place in the world that a Jew can go and be far away from Yiddishkeit. Wherever we may go, wherever in the world we may go, the chain store is there. The chain store that the Rebbe talked about, Shnas HaShivim, has been opened, and it is being staffed by a loving couple and a loving family waiting to greet every single Yid on the face of the earth. We understand quite clearly that everything the Rebbe set forth was with a real sense of mission and purpose. As I mentioned earlier, the Rebbe did not speak poetic terms. He didn't speak theoretical terms. He didn't speak philosophical terms. He spoke actual and practical. So if the Rebbe gave us an initiative, if the Rebbe gave us a mandate, then by definition it meant that the project was doable, and doable in a very real and tangible way. The Rebbetzin once told Rabbi Groner, Olav Shalom, that before the Rebbe would initiate any campaign, he would think it through again and again, and over again and over again, and then he would rethink it again. The Rebbetzin said the Rebbe would play out all the scenarios, all of the pros and all of the cons and all of the potential challenges and all of the obstacles, and only then and only after going through the entire process did he actually announce and launch it to the public. Every potential problem, every sticking point had already been anticipated by the Rebbe. Any argument suggesting that it would not work had already been debunked. So once the Rebbe said, go, take it, run with it, there are no excuses, no acceptable excuses as to why it can't be done. The Rebbe gave us mitzvah after mitzvah, campaign after campaign. But perhaps the most important of all was when the Rebbe said to us that he puts it in our hands to bring Mashiach. If the Rebbe said it's in our hands, it's because the Rebbe knows, he knows that we're able to accomplish this. Otherwise, he would not have put that challenge before us. And therefore today, Gimmul Tamuz, we have to ask ourselves, are we doing everything we possibly can? And what is it that we can do more to finally fulfill the ultimate mandate that the Rebbe gave to all of his Hasidim, to bring Mashiach and to bring it now? May indeed it be today on Gimmul Tamuz that we're zeicha to be reunited together with our Rebbe with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu. It should be now.